Hello everyone, welcome to Aptera Owners Club. I wanted to do a video on the Sono Sion. There are three solar electric vehicles that have been announced. They are the Aptera, the Sion, and the Lightyear 1. And so I wanted to do a kind of a comparison video about those other solar vehicles with the Aptera. So today we're going to talk about the Sono Sion, which is not to be confused with Sion Sono, who is a Japanese poet and filmmaker. So don't get the two confused. Sono is I think they're a German company. They're currently based in Germany, but there were some reports that they were in the Netherlands before, so I'm not real sure who the founders are, but it's currently located in Munich. And if you look at the car, it's basically a very typical looking car, four wheels, boxy, has room for five people, decent trunk space. And this is a car that is geared for the European market, and they have not made any plans that say that they're going to deliver to markets outside of Europe at this time. So for those of us in North America and other places, this is not going to be a competitor. But for people in Europe, this is another solar electric vehicle that is a competitor to the Aptera in a way. But after the end of this video, you'll see that they're really not competitors. Okay, so let's go over some of the features of this thing. They have solar panels all over the roof and on the sides of the vehicle, which is a little silly, I think, because you see solar panels in the back and this side, and basically, depending on where the sun is in position to this thing, half the solar panels aren't going to be working on the sides or the back. So the ones on the top and the hood will usually get use almost all the time. And if you look at the Aptera and the Lightyear 1, they only have solar panels on the roof line, basically. There's no solar panels on the sides because these solar panels on the sides, the angle to the sun won't be very good, and the back ones are going to be totally shaded out by the vehicle. But they were trying to maximize, I think, the solar panels. It is a aluminum unibody frame, and they use the standard electric drive. They're not using hub motors. And so let's look at their technical specs. Okay, so technical specs and compare that to Aptera. So they're using a 54 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. I don't think that Aptera has announced what battery chemistry they're going to use. Lithium iron phosphate is a really good battery chemistry. It's very safe and has a high cycle life. The energy density isn't particularly great, but other than that, it's a very safe vehicle, has less thermal runaway, and is probably safer in crashes from burning, and does not use like cobalt or manganese or other um, elements that are a little bit harder to get a hold of. So iron is much easier to get a hold of than cobalt or manganese. So they have announced they're using lithium iron phosphate. I'm sure that Aptera is aware of this battery chemistry and they are considering it, and that may be what Aptera ends up with, but I don't think that they've announced what battery chemistry they're going to use. They say that the range is going to be 305 kilometers. That's about 190 miles. That's based on the WLTP standard. That's the European standard testing, and that's not as aggressive as the EPA testing. And usually the EPA testing will give you 20% less range. So it's probably going to be an EPA range of approximately 150 miles. So they have a 54 kilowatt battery that gives them about a 150-mile range. So the range isn't impressive. But I think they did that for the market that they're targeting. Um, all right, so they say that they're going to have a tow bar, but that was before they switched this heavier, larger battery. Other places in their website, they say that the towing capacity is unclear at this point with the new, heavier battery. The dimensions, um, these are all in millimeters, so I went ahead and I calculated it in inches so that's easier to compare. Here is the total length of these are the specs for the Sion compared to the Aptera and Prius and Model S and Model 3. So if you look at total length, it's about the length of a Prius. The width is a little bit wider than the Prius with external mirrors, 82 inches. So it's about the width of a Model 3 without the mirror. So it's a more compact vehicle. Wheelbase is 111, which is fairly similar. The track, um, 62, so much narrower than the Aptera, which has a really wide track because of their reverse trike configuration, but similar to the Model 3. Height is 65. That is quite a bit higher, taller than any of these, as you can tell from the way it looked. It's sort of like a small minivan, a little bit. So it has 5 passenger capacity plus 23 feet of cubic trunk space. When you put the rear seats down, it's 44 cubic feet of trunk space, which is quite good. All right. So, what are the who's the market that this car is going for? It's obviously they're targeting it at a urban commuter vehicle. It does not have a high speed. Let's see, where's the max speed? Okay, yeah, here we go. Here's the other technical details. So the weight is 1730 kilograms, which is about 3,800 pounds. That's almost exactly the same weight as a Tesla Model 3. Maximum speed is 80 miles per hour, 85 miles per hour. So that's not very fast. I don't know that I'd feel too comfortable going on American highways sometimes at with that top speed. And then 0 to 60 times are 9 seconds. Energy consumption, calculated this to watt hours per mile, is about 260. That's a little bit worse than the Model 3. And for comparison, the energy consumption of the Aptera is about 100. So the Aptera is about 2.5 times more efficient than the Sion. And the range, like we talked about, is probably 150 based on that. So this is a car. It's built boxy, not to increase its efficiency, but to increase its space so that you can carry 5 people plus a lot of cargo. The top speed is not high, the acceleration is not great, but that's because it's an urban commuter vehicle. If you wanted a family car and you lived in European cities where you don't have to drive long distances, um, and you wanted to park in tight spots, this is a far superior car to the Aptera. But if you wanted a car that would go on long distances at high speeds and have maximum efficiency, then Aptera is where you want to go. They state that they would get, let's see where they talk about solar integration. Yeah, they say they're going to get up to 245 kilometers per week. That works out to about 22 miles per day of charging. That's maximum. They're averaging about 10 miles a day. That's compared to 40 miles a day on the Aptera. And I think that this is calculations based on maximum usage of all the solar panels on the car, which, like we talked about, because of its configuration where they have solar panels on the side of the car, you're never going to get solar radiation on all the solar cells at the same time. So this is a very optimistic solar charging capacity. I'd say 10 miles a day is probably fairly optimistic as well. Whereas when we do a video on the Lightyear 1 and with the solar panels all on the roof, those are more realistic range estimates because the roof and hood are going to give you access to the sun at all times. So essentially, I think the Scion has a couple of things going for it. Price is very good. It starts at 25,000 euros. That's about 30,000 mile, so, excuse me, $30,000, which is about the same price as the 400-mile range Aptera. but this carries 5 people, has more um, cargo space, and is much easier to park in small spots and much easier to drive through small, tight roads. So, as an urban solar vehicle, I would say that this is a superior car. If you want an efficient car, this is not an efficient car. It's not any more efficient than any other EV. You can think of this as basically a boxier, cheaper Model 3 that has some solar panels attached to it. It does have some cool features. It does vehicle to home, and it has an app that lets you, it's like a car sharing as well as a ride sharing app, which may be a plus or a minus depending on what kind of owner you are. And it will charge other vehicles. It has a vehicle to vehicle charging feature, so it can charge other vehicles. So a lot of cool features on it. And I think for the price, it's a great price. And one of the other things they have in common with Aptera is that they are very into the right to repair. They have stated that they will have CAD drawings available and all technical manuals available for download, and they will even have CNC data and 3D printing data so that people with CNC machines and 3D printers can 3D print or CNC their own parts for the car to repair it, which I think is awesome. So a lot of similarities, but this is basically an urban commuter car, low top end speed, not very efficient, but high capacity as compared to an Aptera, which is very efficient, good high end speed, good performance, better for long drives on highways, but does not have the capacity because it is a two-seater vehicle with a good amount of cargo space with two seats in there. Okay, so in the next video, we'll go over the Lightyear 1, which is kind of a totally different class of vehicle, but you can stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.